Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing horror stories associated with quote-unquote sponsored work permits. I've done a number of videos in the past on this term, sponsored work permit. I find it to be kind of a weird, empty kind of phrase. It seems to be bandied about out there sort of in the ether of the internet as kind of a term that's supposed to, add some kind of legitimacy. First of all work permits are sponsored. It's one of the requirements. You got to have some sort of sponsor, Thai sponsor, corporate sponsor. It could be in the context of maybe even a nonprofit or something, but to have work authorization in Thailand, there's a sponsorship component associated with a local entity. Now, this term sponsored work permit is often used colloquially to talk about essentially a work permit where someone's just quote unquote buying the work permit. They're buying use of a work permit. They're basically paying someone to put them on their books as an employee or as somebody working in the company and then getting them a work permit. But it's oftentimes done pretextually, I would argue pretensively, especially where they have nothing to do with the business at hand. They're just on the books because they want to have that document. Now, the reason for this video is you need to be careful with this stuff. I've done a number of videos on this, and recently, in about the last month and a half, about the last 6 weeks, it's come up. I've had two different folks that have contacted us after having a real, for lack of a better term, real horror story associated with one of these quote-unquote sponsored work permits. And in one case, it was a situation where there was an inspection and the person was not on the premises, and then the person inspecting asked, well, when are they here? And basically somebody said, yeah, not at all. And that resulted in a really bad situation for that person. There was another situation where they were dealing with their renewal, and basically some questions were asked by the adjudicating officer regarding what they did and some things like this, and they couldn't answer basic questions associated with the underlying business, and it resulted in heavy scrutiny and ultimately in that case just a failure to get the thing renewed, which put that person in a really precarious position. Long story short, be careful not even careful. Sponsored work permits, or specifically this notion of just buying a work permit off someone or renting it, if you will, you need to be really careful with that to the point of just don't do it, because that can be all kinds of problems, especially if you have no idea what the company you're dealing with is doing. On top of that, there may possibly be some argument that, hey, this could be a level of fraud or even maybe human trafficking, depending on the circumstances, although that's pretty tenuous analysis. I can see a set of circumstances where one could make sort of the argument that, yeah, that's a trafficking issue. But long story short, I would just, if you're dealing with a work permit, you're wanting to work in Thailand, go through the proper channels, get everything formalized in the correct manner pursuant to Thai law.